Welcome back, family, to another inspiring episode of Rise Urban Nation podcast, where we elevate Black and Pan African voices, reshaping the future of entrepreneurship, leadership, and truth telling. Today's episode is for every entrepreneur, every leader, every dreamer who's ever asked themselves, how do I lead without losing myself? How do I build without burning out? Our guest today is someone whose story is both bold and beautiful. She is an Afro-Latina powerhouse who's transformed adversity into impact. She's a best-selling author, culture shifter, and a creator of transformational frameworks like Empower, IMPOWER, and Enough. Please help me welcome the one and only Amervis, because I'm nervous. López Cobb. I had to do it like that. Welcome to the show, sis. Welcome
On
to the show.
occasion. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Terrell, you were funny.
And look, I'm nervous because I'm meeting a trendsetter. You know, I knew my homegirl was gonna send me somebody, and I was looking at your website and all the testimonies people giving you. I was like, man, she gonna be traveling the world soon. She gonna be like the next female Tony Robbins or something. The way she out here changing lives
I
and
like to
saving
joke around and
lives.
be like Les Brown and Brene Brown had a baby, and it was kind of like Simon Sinek, but it was a
Ooh.
mixed race Afro-Latina. So
Oh, that's a good one right there. That's a good one. You keep that one. Ignore the one I said. Ignore the one I said. That one was terrible. That one was
no,
great.
you all good. You're so funny.
All right,
Okay.
so the people catching up because we had a good green room session. Remind the folks, how did we get connected again? Let's remind the folks of how we got connected.
Yes, we got connected. I hired a business coach, Kimberly Spencer, to help me kind of give me some help me understand how this whole transitioning out of corporate into entrepreneurship would work, so I
Yeah,
can at least have an exit strategy when I'm ready to really build it out. And so Kimberly Spencer, who is amazing, one of the most
she
authentic
is
people
amazing.
I've ever met, and I've met her through Adriana Rosales, who's my publisher, R&P Studio Publishing. And so
Nice.
she says, when you hire me, you hire my network. And so I was like, all right,
Yeah,
cool. And so I said, look, I need to get out there and start promoting my book. I have not done a very good job of that. And so she's like, I got somebody for you. That's how we connected. And she was right.
yeah.
She did not lie. She did not lie.
Yeah, your network is your net worth. Your network makes it work. And let me tell you, so for all my listeners, you probably you don't know Kimberly because Kimberly is not Black or Latina, but she's our white ally sister. She
Mm,
got some soul in her.
that's exactly what she is.
And I met her at the collaboration that we do, that Rise Urban Nation does with Forever Media, at another retreat for entrepreneurs and six-figure speakers, six figures and up
Yeah.
speakers that were in this retreat. I got $1 million worth of game there. I got to interview several people on the podcast, and then me and her just kept chopping it up. And she's like, "Yo, I got somebody for you." I was like, "All right, cool, cook it up." If you say she's that and all that, the bag of chips, I believe you. So let her come through, and now she's here, ladies and gentlemen.
Hola, 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 hola.
All right, so for those who may not know you yet,
Yeah.
take us back. How did your leadership journey begin, and
Yeah.
what inspired your focus on psychological safety and trust-based leadership?
Well, my leadership journey began as a teen mom on the street corner, because
Mm-hmm.
before I became a leader in title and corporate environments, I was a leader of my child who needed
Mm,
somebody to lead him out of the ghetto. And so,
yeah.
like I like to joke around, I say, in North Philadelphia, I was born and raised in the Badlands, is where I spend most of my days. And so I led myself out of the hood and into corporate environments. And I wrote a
Right.
whole book about that one called From the Streets to Corporate America, about 6 years ago, when I had an epiphany about how my story, somebody said to me one day, your story can be somebody else's healing guide or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm
Mm,
going to put it out there. And people were like, you were brave. How can you write this? Aren't you afraid that people aren't going to hire you if they find out, who you were? And I'm like, if they don't hire me because of who I was, then they're not the right people for me. But
yeah.
so it's protection, not rejection.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to realize that, because as I was growing up through my leadership journey, I broke into corporate America, and I was hungry for validation and hungry for approval. And so I did
Hmm.
all the things that I was told to do. as a teen mom, somebody was like, saw something in me and they were like, hey, you know what? You're really good at project management. And they handed me the Microsoft Project 98 user guide. And I could tell it was a copy because it was spiral bound, looked like they photocopied it. And they said, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
And I looked into it. And at night, I went to school. They said, you need to go get your bachelor's degree. You need to get your project management certification. You need to get your MBA. And every time they gave me a ladder to climb, I climbed it. But lots of times I was jumping off of the ladder onto jungle gyms to not lose myself along the way, if you know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying.
And
I can read in between the lines.
yeah, I know the audience can feel it too, because a lot of us are feeling the same feeling, and we're like, hey, something is not kosher here. We got to figure this out. So
Yeah.
I stumbled into project management by somebody seeing something in me, and I decided I was going to take a career path in building project management offices. And so I got relocated from Philadelphia to the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. And I lived in Vegas for 15 years. And
Yeah.
my leadership journey was mostly corporate, and at home. It started at home, but it was also I looked at nonprofits, and I looked at things like the Project Management Institute and how can I become a member of that, and how can I was VP of the Project Management Institute chapter in Vegas where I live for a little bit, and I helped elevate the members there. And I also became one of the
Yeah.
founding members of Latinas 100, which is a global storytelling organization founded by my dear friend and publisher, Adriana Rosales. And we went from 20 members back in 2000, I want to say 1920, to over 200 members worldwide, spanning 17 countries. So I'm a leader from that perspective, and I'm promoting the authors and helping the authors, and we're all helping each other. And our stories, what I love about Adriana is that she gives voice to the voiceless. And so I'm just one of those people that I believe that we are all leaders regardless of our title. And when I stumbled into psychological safety, I went to a class on. I didn't even know I didn't know what this phrase psychological safety was. And I went to this class and I was like, oh, okay, there's giving me language to what I've been experiencing. And it made me step back and go, okay, these were the times I got psychological safety, and these were the overwhelming amount of times I did not get psychological safety. And
you probably can count those on 20 hands.
yes,
I'm imagining.
yes, yeah, yes, and the data shows women and people of color are more likely to not get psychological safety than other people. And so, not to get all geeky with the data, but 2.5% of men get it. Men in general, and not in the BIPOC groups and not in women groups, they don't get psychological safety either. But women and people of color, we are 4.2 times more likely to stay at an organization where there is psychological safety. So anyway, that's part of my passion for it, because I was like, okay, wait a minute. Amy, I did the research. I was like, okay, I got to look into Amy Edmondson some more and Dr. Timothy Clark. And as I started to do the research, I started to try to make a correlation between, dare I say, DEI and psychological safety, right? And I was
it's a safe space to say that here. We gonna say it. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We all
I was
need
talking to a lot of people, like, if we just provide it as leaders who have an obligation, more obligation than any when you're in your job, the person that affects your psychological safety the most, it's not the only person, but the most, is the person who you report to. And as leaders, I said to myself, I was like, okay, I'm going to write. I was supposed to write another book last year, and my spirit kept waking me up. My publisher was like, that was your ancestors. Your ancestors were like, yes.
They're like, hey, we restless over here. And she was about to write the book, and she hasn't yet. We need you to do it for all the things that we got traumatized for, that we passed, that been passing on to generation to generation.
That's right.
And I love what you said there, because I often tell leaders that people don't quit their job; they quit their bosses, and so they're
that's right.
Yeah, for the most part, and so they're the first person that's going to help decide whether I stay in this job or I'm going to be, productive in this job, right?
And as I looked at the research, it made me want to be a better leader, because I have been leading teams. I got promoted to manager in 1998 at a Blue Cross Blue Shield subsidiary. And as a project,
you said 98?
98. I remember in 1998, I was a baby.
Man, I was over here like, I thought she was 98.
Yes.
So I'm over here trying to do the math, and she over here looking like she in her 20s, and she talk about 98.
So
she became a manager.
But I would look a lot. I would look like a teenager if I hadn't suffered a lot at the hands of leaders in corporate environments who didn't offer psychological safety, because
Yeah,
it's
so
real.
somebody who been a manager since '98, this skin is glowing, y'all. I'm just telling y'all. I don't know what's in the Afro-Latina water these days, but y'all doing it. Y'all doing good,
It's
sis.
them green drinks that my daughter be like, "Mommy, that looks disgusting," and I'm like, "It doesn't taste great, but I need to heal inside, so I'm gonna drink this and see if that helps." So yeah, I just felt like this is a message that has to be heard. And so Amy Edmondson's been on the rounds, Dr. Timothy Clark has been on the rounds, even Simon Sinek jumped on it a couple years ago. This is not new, it's been around for a long time. And I think that I'm starting to see the data and I'm looking at it, and people want this now more than
Yeah.
ever, because they're getting it less now more than ever, because they've been in, other people who lead them have been emboldened by what we see in politics, and they're doing the same thing in corporate environments. I always say to my people who share with me what they're going through, I'm like, it's no different than what's going on in government. Like,
Yeah,
it's the same. You
it
just,
isn't.
in the macro level, and you look at it on the micro level, and they get braver and bolder because no one's holding them accountable. And so I also
Yeah.
thought, I was like, I didn't get it right. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Let me write something that shares when I stepped in it. When I was like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, that was not right. That was not the best thing for me to do. I do 52 practices. You don't gotta, swallow it all in one day. You can take it bit by bit, chomp it little bit by bit. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm gonna do a framework around it. I'm a framework person. Project management to me, is all about frameworks. If you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it, if you're doing it from a best practice perspective. And I was like, okay, what works well, what doesn't? And I threw a little humor in there. Bueno, no bueno, and real world experience. And you can get a theory book anywhere. You want a theory book? Go
Yeah.
buy Stephen Covey. Go buy. But I wove in real life stories and experiences about when when I got it, when I didn't, when I
Mm-hmm.
gave it, when I didn't. And I think it's important for people to understand that in the age of AI today, where the bots are coming whether we like it, they're here and they're going to take over our jobs whether we like it or
Yeah.
not, right? The thing that's going to distinguish us from other leaders is our ability to connect with our humanity, and psychological safety plays a
Mm.
huge role in that. So you can
It
outsource
does.
to tech all the mundane stuff, but how are you going to connect with human beings? How are you going to make
Yeah.
sure that you're leading from the heart? And I don't just mean like soft heart, like what is it, kumbaya? I mean, like, have heart to do the courageous things. Like, I grew up in an environment
Yeah.
where I had to scan threats all the time and like stick up for people all the time. And I remember getting into my last street fight, as I would say, defending somebody who was a good friend of mine who got beat up, and I had to like, oh no, that's not okay. That's not on my
Yeah.
watch, not in my meeting, not on my team. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, too many leaders, all they want is their paycheck, and they will sacrifice you and throw you to the wolves in exchange for their paycheck, which is disgusting. Like, it just makes me sick to see
Yeah.
it. And I want our young up and coming leaders to understand that that's not how you lead. I'm not going to make a generalization, because not all boomers are like that. But
Yeah.
the overwhelming majority of boomers lead with that command and control, authoritative, name, shame, and blame leadership style
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't work for today's modern workforce. We're living in unprecedented times. We got 5 generations in the workforce. At no
Yeah.
other time in
Isn't that crazy
history.
to think about that we got 5 generations in the
Yeah.
workforce?
And we all have different
And
needs.
yeah, each generation has different needs.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about everything you just said. One like it's funny because your story is a little bit of my story too. So let me do a quick
Yeah.
travel down memory lane. So I grew up in DC when it was the murder capital, right? I was one of those kids that was quickly on the school to prison pipeline. Always had to be tough in your neighborhood.
At risk youth,
There was
school to prison
yeah,
pipeline.
at risk youth, school to
I'm
prison
familiar with that.
pipeline,
I
you
was
name
too.
it, right? That and I had this journey where uh, fighting is how you dealt with things, or being tough
That's right.
basically. And I'm a fast forward through all that. Managed to escape, got a mentor in my life, but
Mm-hmm.
when I got into the corporate world, it took me a long time to get my degree and so forth, doing everything you said.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to land in HR, corporate training, and so forth. So I taught all of Stephen Covey and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. And it wasn't until I put my own flavor on it, my own sauce on it with the stories and so forth, that
That's
made
right.
it really resonate with people that look like us. And I think you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
um and that's what really created you know not only just a culture shift for the teams that I got a chance to touch, but for me too as a leader, because I was like, all right, I want to make sure I become a better leader. I need to heal myself,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Because if I can't heal myself from all of the trauma that I experienced, I can't just be teaching this stuff
Mm.
and model it, like model what it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's one thing teaching it, and it's another thing to model it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so that's became my leadership journey into all this transformation stuff. Now you've led Fortune 500 transformations,
That's right. Worked at MGM, big,
rescued.
big projects. A lot of other places, but that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, you rescued failing PMOs
Yeah.
and authored best-selling books. Yet your heart is rooted in healing and humanity, which I
Yes.
was, referring to how that's at the core of some of the stuff that you got to do. What was
Yes.
the turning point that led you to center your work around the psychological safety? Was it when you started your healing journey, or was it because you saw another manager do something that wasn't right? Was it that
It was
that
all
what,
of
or
it.
was
It
it
was
the
all of it. I'm gonna tell you. So I want to say, oh man, it's all of the above. So I want to say 6 years ago, I started the inner, like you said, exactly what you said. I was like, okay, what role do I have to play in the fact that I'm not getting psychological safety, or I'm reacting?
mm,
Like, I can't just be like a lot of people that just let it go, right? I'm like internalizing it. And so I was like, okay, what inner work do I need to do? What inner child work do I need to do? And I realized that when I was growing up in North Philly, my grandmom took care of me for my first 7 years of life, and she did a really good job of that. And then she died and passed away, and my mother took over. And I feel like I had this
mm,
abandonment rejection thing going on. And so I 6 years ago started that inner journey for like doing the real work. And I
mhm,
said, okay, I need to start there. And then a couple years ago, I got diagnosed, a little bit more than a couple years ago. I got diagnosed. I went in for a regular mammogram, and they were like, hey, we found
mhm,
some, we found something. And, and like the project
mm.
manager in me was like, I need a project plan. I need milestones. When can I get surgery? Do I need radiation? What's happening? And like God stopped me dead in my tracks, because I was like,
Mhm,
okay, all this trying to climb this ladder and trying to do this thing, I'd already had like the seeds were being planted along the way. But when that happened, I took the
mhm.
full FMLA time to heal and get the surgery and the removal and the
Love that.
30, I had 30 rounds of radiation. And during that period, I
Ooh.
said, when I emerge out of this, because I will emerge out of this, I will become a better leader, and I will teach other leaders how to be better leaders. Because I remember going through the Covey program back in the 2000s, the 7 habits. And
Yeah.
then I read the eighth habit, and I was like, oh, the eighth habit is all about once you become that leader and you're made it, is your obligation to go back and go help other people be better leaders. And
Mhm,
so I did a lot of self reflection and was like, I could be, I put up a lot of the facade, a lot of that I have to defend myself because of where I grew up. But do I really have to defend myself? Do I really have to? Why don't I just take a step back and just breathe and look at
mm.
how can I contribute, not just to humanity, but one person at a time? How can I change one person at a time's life the way that my life would change? Because I do recall those people, like you said, somebody took you under their wing, literally under their wing. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so
Yeah, and the wings in the background. See, it was
yeah,
it was all poetic. It was meant to be
somebody took you
poetic
under their wing. And
justice.
while I didn't have a lot of long-term mentors, I had the overwhelming majority of people in my career were Black women who saw something in me and said something to me that were like seeds being planted. And last year was when I really just, like I said, I couldn't sleep. And I was like, I have been masking the I've been trying to put up this front for so long about how I'm weak. I'm a weak person. I'm a weak leader if I let the lack of psychological safety that I got um break me down or make me, like make
Yeah,
me
and
sad. Yeah.
in fact, it's the quite opposite.
Yes.
Like it takes a stronger leader to be
Yes.
vulnerable,
Yes.
and to let the mask down and
Yeah.
show up in your most authentic
Yeah.
self, right?
Yeah, you're right. And I prayed and I asked God and I said, what? Like, I was, look, full transparency, bathtub crying. Like, what do you want me to do? When will this pain go away? I've been going through it my whole life since I was a kid, like, now I leave, I break out of the hood and I go into corporate environments and I do all the things they tell me to do. And I'm respectful. I do, like, they think I'm coming at them and this is me being professional. Like, you don't know the real, like, you know, and I was like, I gotta turn this pain into purpose. I gotta turn this like trauma into triumph. And I gotta use this to help humanity. Because otherwise, what was the point of my being here? Like I came here to do something. My name is Amervis, American Vision. It should be a vision of what America could be.
Mm.
Like, you know, I would say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, because they made you say it in school, and I would say it thinking, okay, right, like life, liberty, the pursuit of justice. And I'd walk out of the school, and I'm like, we're not getting none of that out here as people of color. Like,
Nah.
it's aspirational. And then I go in corporate environments thinking things were fair, and I'm a Libra, so not to get on the astrology, but I was like, there's no justice up in here. You have to swallow.
There's no justice. It's just us.
And I just was like, this is not okay. We can do better. We can do better. And when you know better, you do better. And when I decided to create, I was like, okay, I'm going to create tools and resources to help us be better leaders of ourselves,
Nah.
of our homes, of our workplaces, or whatever. And like you said, story. My publisher, as we were going through the manuscript, she was like, Mervis, when we first started, she's like, the data is great, the research is great. This study, the Harvard Business Review, and fine. People want your story. And she said, I read your first book. She goes, when I read your first book, she said, I was not as brave and to share like all that. She goes, take that same approach. Share some of the real things people want to know. You don't have to like say at this company and name the company, or name the person, but you can share the story so it could be a teachable moment for somebody else without doing all that. And
Nah.
I'm proud and I don't care what people say. I'm at the age I'm just like, whatever, say whatever you want. I'm not hurting nobody. I'm not causing anybody any trauma. And if you have trauma because I wrote something that was positive for somebody else, go do the inner work. Go get some therapy.
Nah.
I got, I get some therapy.
Hey, go get some therapy.
Yeah.
And try Jesus. Don't try her.
Yeah, because sometimes these people, they hurt you, and then somebody hires an executive coach and say, well, I know they hurt you, but we got them a coach. And I'm like, they don't need a business coach. They need a therapist. Like, why don't you get them into a therapy program, and then that'll help them. Or give them the book, and they can read the book, and maybe they'll have an epiphany and be like, oh, I did that. I shouldn't have done that, or I could do better. So
I agree. Some of them need some healing.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm thinking, because as you were talking, I was thinking about like some of the stuff that because I went down the rabbit hole of like your YouTube channel and things that you've been on and so forth. And, something that stuck out to me, because you talk about, you know, hurt in a way. I think I'm trying to think of what you said one time that just caught my attention. I know what it is. You said in one of your I can't remember where I saw that, but you said something to the lines that we can't normalize harm.
That's right. That's right.
And let's get real for a second.
We can't normalize harm.
What are some of the workplace or leadership moments that tested you, and how did you navigate those storms? Because we can't normalize harm, but we're in this new society and generation where harm is being normalized, and I think it takes leaders like yourself and us to kind of say, hey, that's not okay. And then but on top of that, how do we do it different, right? So I mean, have there been some situations that really tested you, and how did you navigate those storms?
Oh man. There's so many. Like, I don't even know where to start with the testing. I mean, I've had I'm gonna share one that it was very interesting to me, because I don't know why I let it bother me, and anybody else probably would have let it like roll off their back.
We'll let it ride.
But I remember I started a place, and they hired me as a director. Their PMO, they had tried to do a PMO before, the PMO failed, and they needed somebody to bring in and build a PMO, like build a PMO that actually works. And typical white male dominated environment, where tech project management is something that people that look like me, that was rare. And I remember I was so excited to be there, and I was giving the team some like, okay, we're gonna build this together, right? What are your thoughts? Let's problem solve together, let's
Mhm.
collaborate. And then I go to an HR, I don't know, it's some kind of orientation or some one of those mandatory, where you've been in HR, a mandatory training that you got to go
Yeah.
to, right?
I remember
And
those.
I remember this girl, somebody came over to me the table and they were like, "Oh, you're the new director in IT. I'm so excited to meet you. I heard a lot about you." And they were a person of color, so to see another person of color was like, "Ooh, let me go shake hands and see this person." And the trainer, no less, the trainer who had just got
Mhm.
promoted to manager, HR manager, no less, turns
Mhm.
around and says, "You're a director?" And I was like,
Wow.
I was like, I'm gonna have to process that one. I didn't say anything in the moment because I was always taught, we were taught to put your head
Right.
down, don't say anything, don't make any waves, don't defend yourself. If you defend yourself, you're a troublemaker. You're not allowed to defend
Mhm.
yourself because, you know, if you do, then you get branded and then you get mobbed and targeted, and they try to look at every single way they can get you out because you spoke up.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
try to let it go. Brother, I try to let it go. I did. I slept on it. I was
Yeah.
like, God, what you want me to do with this? and
Yeah.
the next day I couldn't help myself. I scheduled a meeting with her and we went
Yeah.
to a conference room, and I tried to have a conversation with her about, like, what was your intent? Because I'm like, she's in HR. She needs to
Yeah.
know. She can't be going around saying this to people. Like,
Yeah.
and so I had a conversation with her in a respectful way. I wasn't like, "Hey girl, I'm not back in North Philly," like, like, it was,
Yeah.
I was trying to educate her on how it's not okay. And the first reaction was, I didn't say that. And I was like, "Quick, number one, you can't invalidate my experience. Like, I felt this strongly
Mhm.
about it that I scheduled a meeting with you to talk about it." And
Yeah.
then it went from deflection, and then the crocodile tears. And that's when I knew, I was like,
Mm.
nothing I say is gonna help her. Maybe she'll process later, but in this moment, I'm gonna need to let her just be. Because
Mhm.
Robin, was it Robin D'Angelo talks about fragility? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to, like, step back here. But
Yeah.
the point is that I think it's important to know, pick and, like, do your inner guidance system, your
Mhm.
IG, right, your IGS, and go, okay, is this something I should let go? Am I splitting hairs? Or is this
Yeah.
something that I want the other person to know, these are my boundaries and you just crossed it?
Mhm.
And you're in a responsible position where there's training people coming to these training classes every month or every 2 months, whatever the schedule is, and it's not okay. And I'm pretty sure that I'm hoping if I ever see her again, I would like to know, did that change the way that you spoke to other people?
Yeah.
Because it's not okay. So
Yeah.
that's my one.
One speak to other people, and if you have the I hate to say audacity, but if you have the goals to speak like that to me, I wonder what you say when I'm
Oh,
not
most
around you,
deaf.
right?
Most deaf. Most deaf. That's right. When I'm not
Uh,
around, what are you saying when I'm not around?
yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of where they don't feel like I deserve it. And I'm like, I have all the receipts. You can look at my LinkedIn profile. You can look at my, I'm very, like,
Nah.
transparent. Like, you can look at all my recommendations with people just randomly just speaking on me. I'm not like, hey, give me a recommendation. One or two maybe when I was in between jobs. Like, hey, I'm like, I'm about to move to another job here. So
Nah.
yeah.
I think sometimes people project a lot, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
the other thing is, what does that say about them? What that my success upsets you in a way that is maybe it's upsetting your insecurities. I'm sorry, my confidence and my success
Yes.
upsets your insecurities,
Yes.
but that's something you need to work on.
Yes. I
Um,
heard somebody
uh,
say once, they were doing a talk, and I think it was a church talk. I can't remember what it was. Back when I was going to church a lot, back in the day when I was in Vegas, I was in the making sure I went. I don't know what
like,
day it was, but I remember they said, if my light shines so brightly for you that it hurts your eyes, then get better sunglasses. Or something like that. I don't know. I'm messing it up. I'm sure I'm messing it up because something
no, that's still a good one. That's still a
yeah.
good one. Yeah,
Like,
I like that one.
yeah. No, my
I might have
spirit is
to.
irritating your demons. I don't know what to tell you. Like, go do the work. Go do the work. Because
Yeah,
let me tell you,
yeah,
there wasn't a position that I got that I didn't earn. I did the work before I got it. And I had to, every single time. There wasn't a time where somebody was like, oh, you did all the things, let's promote you. Every single time
nah,
it was me going, from within. Obviously, if I'm moving into a new job, that's different when they're hiring you in and they see your talent. But from within, it was always like, hey, look, here's the 20 projects I did. Here's the 20 teams I led. Here's the transformation I made. Here's the outcomes that I delivered against. When you gonna give me my
Yeah.
money? When you gonna give me my
Yeah.
recognition? When you gonna give me my title, my office, my whatever? They got it. They're not doing half the stuff that I'm doing. What I'm seeing a disconnect here. There's no meritocracy like happening here,
Not at
as we
all.
say. So
And I remember seeing some data one time that was showing that, and I think I saw a white man talking about it, which made me even more like, oh, well, okay, he a real one. And he was telling another white man that said like, if you see any woman, most of the time, if you see any woman of color in the C suite
mhm,
and that level position, 9 times out of 10, she did twice as much work, if not 3 times as work as
facts.
their white male counterparts to get into that position. So yes, I am
Well,
going
good
to
for him.
entrust in her because I know for her to be there, she had to do twice the work of what you had to do to get here.
That's right.
And I was like, I love
They
that.
weren't just somebody's
Um,
golf buddy.
yeah, exactly, right? One, thank you for the level of transparency. I think that's a powerful testimony for anybody who's hearing it, who's in the situation now, who's thinking about it, or who has been through it. Right? You've took something, and you constantly continue to do this, as I see throughout your career. You take what something that could have broken you and built it into frameworks that now empower others. Um, to tell me some more about this. Can you share the empower
Oh
or the
yeah,
enough
yeah,
framework, and how it looks in practice?
yeah.
Because I'm fascinated by those, and I think a lot of people would benefit from that.
Well, I like to say from adversity to impact, right? Because I'm constantly going, okay, how do I take what has happened? And I remember being in corporate and growing up, and people would go, and I would frame things. I was so one of my, I hate to say weaknesses because areas of growth was I was
Yeah.
very blunt, right? I was very like direct and like it's A. Is this or
Hmm.
it's white or black? It's not gray, and there is some gray, but and as I'm learning to say and I
I like how you corrected yourself on the go. He's like, but no, wait,
I'm
and
constantly correcting myself until I train
I'm
myself
a
to do
work
it.
in progress.
That's
We all a
we
work in
all are. We're
progress.
all
It's
with
all good.
right work in progress. So uh I remember being in these environments and they would coach me to say, spin it on the positive. Don't spin it on the negative. Spin it on what it could be, not what it is. And they would
Mhm.
also like I would also look at the situations and go, okay, so we have this whatever this issue is, and we need to resolve it. And I was always taught, don't come into a meeting with stating a problem without having a solution, right? I was taught you got to come in even if your solution sucks, like even if it's the most crappy solution, at least come in giving it some thought that I saw this issue and this is what I think we should do about it. Either on my own, I thought about this, or I went and consulted with a few other people, and together we came up with this. And so when I looked at this, I was like, what is the easiest way to create a framework where it becomes a way of being, not a checklist. Like, well, I did this and I did that and I did that. So that makes me a good leader. And the empower framework, it started out, so I started playing around with the letters because I was like, I remember things the way my brain works, and I'm neurodivergent. I speak multiple languages. I didn't recognize that until last year. I process things differently. Some people like things orally, some people like things in writing. I'm one of those people that needs things. I need to write things down to process them. I
Mhm.
remember sitting at kitchen tables writing frameworks for in corporate environments, going, okay, how do I create a framework for project management? Okay, rapid or relatively rapid, request, assess, plan,
Yeah.
implement, deploy. Okay, that's an acronym. They can remember
I
that.
see you like your acronyms. You be acronym and everything.
Yeah,
With
yeah. So I'm power.
read like
So the
empower.
I'm
Yeah.
power. So I was like, how do I teach it in a way people can walk away? They like the checklist, let me checklist, but also make it a way of being. And so the I'm
Yeah.
power was I illuminate. As a leader, you have to illuminate the path forward. What is the North Star? People, they don't know where they're going if you don't at least say that's the North Star. Like,
Yeah.
illuminate the path forward. Model. We always hear model the behavior you want to see, but do we really do it? But do we also
Mhm.
model and reward authentic leadership? No, because when
Ooh.
people show their true selves, what do? We crush them, right?
Yeah.
Right? Prioritize psychological safety above all else. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get, and nobody's going to be a truth teller. Nobody's going to tell you anything. They're just going to be like, the project is green, it's on track, and the project is red, dying. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, okay, so
That's when the pot is like, ah.
that's so weird how that alarm went off. Like, that's hilarious. Oh, like the angels in the back and the alarm. That's actually an ocean song from. Okay.
You timed that perfectly. You
That
timed that
was
perfectly.
that can only be God. I don't know what to tell you. So we got illuminate, model, prioritize, and then own. Own your story and drive accountability. Use your story
Mm,
to admit your mistakes so that people can learn. Hey,
nah.
you're learning something because you're owning it. Like, it's yours. Don't try to pretend. Welcome and amplify diverse perspectives. And I'm not just talking about what we look like on the outside. A lot of times it was like, for me, diversification of thought. Welcome to people who think differently than you, who process differently than you, who, whatever the diverse thing is.
Nah.
Engage fully and lead with vulnerability, right? We're not statues. People know, they can see right through it. Be vulnerable, and that helps them be vulnerable. Because if they're vulnerable, they're going to share with you what's really happening, and then you can help them with whatever
Yeah.
it is. Otherwise, you
Nah.
can't help, right?
Nah, because everybody's walking around all masked up and they're afraid to admit, because they think that's a weakness or a vulnerability and they don't want to but that vulnerability could be somebody else's strength and they could possibly, if you're on the same team, like, hey, let's pair up. I can help you with that. You can help me with this. And then boom, we
Right.
we could
Hey, if you
we
need
could
help,
we could
you
make
need
this thing
help.
work,
This
right?
is right. Yeah, two heads are better than one. Like,
Yeah.
and you can't solve an issue. What is it? You got to name the problem before you can solve the problem. Being
That
vulnerable helps you do
facts.
that, right? And then the last one, reflect. Reflect. And then not
Right.
just reflect, because reflect is the reflect. Reflect is, to me, when people ask me, how did you get out of the situation you were in, or the situations? And I was like, self awareness. You got to reflect. You got to look in the mirror and go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's working, what's not working, how do I adjust? And not just reflect, but reflect, adjust, and disrupt, right? Because you
Mm.
can reflect all day long. You're looking down the sky, like, okay, great, great. How are you going to alter your behavior? How are you going to alter what you're doing? And if you see things that are not right, you don't have to risk your health, your wealth, you don't have to risk your humanity in terms of, like, taking a bullet for
Yeah.
somebody if it's not, but kindly say, like, if you're in a meeting and somebody's talking over somebody else, kindly just maybe softly say, I don't think Amervis is done talking. I don't think Susie's done talking. I don't think Johnny's done talking. Like, let's
Yeah.
hear Johnny out. Or if you're stealing somebody's idea, or you see somebody stealing somebody's idea, maybe gently be like, oh, that's what Johnny said, or that's what Susie said, or
Damn.
yes, I'm
Like
glad
bring
that
it
you
back some.
elaborating on what they said, you know.
Yeah, I love this empower framework. I'm thinking, even I was in my reflection mode when you were going through it, of
Hmm.
how I even do that in real life. Like, owning those moments. I call those like teachable moments. And
Hmm.
sometimes when I was in training, I would make mistakes. And I was like, all right, well, let me own this. This is a teachable moment. And then I will allow them to witness my mistake firsthand, and
Yeah,
then they coach me, and we coach each other through how could I have done that differently, like,
that's right.
and what would blah blah blah. All right, so going forward, blah blah blah. This is how we're gonna do it. Da da da. And they would love and respect it, right?
Yeah.
Even
I've
more
said sorry
so.
more times than I can count. I don't even.
Yeah,
My bad. Let me
they
get this
would.
right. Let me make this right.
Yeah, they would love and respect that even more so than had I tried not to own it,
Right.
right?
That's right.
And try to move through it.
People
And
see
so I
through it. Yeah.
love,
They'll be
yeah, I
like,
love
thank
that.
you. Because now when I'm a step in it, I could come to you and tell you I stepped in it, and we can work through it and get out of that situation
Yeah,
and figure out how to solve it.
yeah. And also encourages a growth mindset,
Mm,
right?
that Carol Dweck
And,
mindset. Yep.
yeah, and I like people working with people who have that growth mindset. I give me the and quickly go through the enough framework with me.
Wow. The enough framework is engage, nurture, own, understand, grow, and honor. And so I
Ooh,
like to see those two. Enough really is, I like to use enough as like part one before you get to the
okay,
psychological safety I'm power. It's the leader within. right?
Yeah.
It's providing psychological safety for yourself, right?
Mm.
Engaging with your full self, with you, like just you, nurturing your well-being, right? We don't take care of ourselves enough sometimes. um
Yeah.
Having gone through the experience, I went the health scare, right? I was like, oh, that I was not taking care of myself. I like, when your smartphone needs to get charged up, you got to plug it in and let it get charged up. You can't fill it. Well, how many times are you here? You can't fill from an empty cup. Give, 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 give. You got to nurture
Mm-hmm.
you. Then you could be a better leader. You can't lead other people until you nurture yourself, until you take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Own, I use the same own, own your story, own your accountability. Uh, um, uh, Understand your value. Don't let other
Mm-hmm.
people's limited vision of you dictate like who you are, right? Your
Yeah.
unlimited potential. Don't let somebody's limited vision of you limit your unlimited potential. Know who like
Yeah.
your value is, right? And growth, everybody talks about growth, 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 growth. You got to get uncomfortable to grow, right? So grow through challenges. You're gonna, there's
Mm-hmm.
something for me to learn. I'm always like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Why is this happening? um and then honor your voice. We've been silenced for so
Mm.
long. We've been told just do what I say, not as I do. You know how many times you grew up, how many people have shared with you they grew up on because I said so? You can't treat people like
Yep.
that
Right here.
anymore. We're not children. Like, part of that framework is teaching people that no, you have to explain to people why. I mean, you don't have to, but if you want a better
Yeah.
result, it helps to say we're doing this because of why. This is the impact. This is the outcome. This is how it's going to change whatever it is. Lives. Like, you get me all excited. I'm like, enough. Yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
these are the things
Like
that I'm passionate
when you
about.
say we not kids anymore, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. Some of us adults behave and act like grown kids. It's probably due to they never got through their trauma and they
That's
stuck in
right.
that
That's
that
right.
age
Hurt people
cycle.
hurt
but,
people.
but I digress.
Yeah. What'd you say about?
I said that's probably because they never did the work on themselves and they stuck in that framework and cycle. But I digress.
No, it's true.
Let,
It's true. You're speaking on something. Like, I would get mad sometimes, and I'd log off my laptop and go talk to my husband, and I'm like, all the deflection and the projection and the gaslighting and the narcissism. Like, how do these, like, the executive suite is filled with people that have not done that inner work, and it's affecting other people, and it's not okay. Because I mean, I think I talk about Dr. Candia Bailey a lot, and I was
Mhm.
like, when I heard her story that she committed suicide over how they were treating her at that university, I was like, I have a friend who is her sorority sister who said she left a letter that said, "Don't let them get away with this." And I think about
Mhm.
psychological safety and how she didn't have any, and how they're starting that whole End Workplace Abuse Act, because when you get cut,
Mhm.
and I say this, and people will hear me say this on all the podcasts because the same thing I say all the time, when you break a leg on the job or you cut yourself on the job, there's OSHA laws and they give you workman's comp to heal yourself. They
Mhm.
cover it, right? But they're inflicting psychological harm. Your bruise will heal, your bone will heal, but that psychological trauma, that doesn't heal so easily. And I think about it.
Mhm.
I'm like, if I didn't have the love and the support system that I have around me, and I wasn't so resilient from all the stuff that I've gone through, I think about, like, people are out there. I hear the stories of the guy at Acme or whatever it was. He killed himself because of what was happening at work with his bosses. I'm like, that breaks my heart. That's a
Yeah.
travesty. Like, you can't. How do you as a leader sleep at night when you're affecting people's lives? Like you said, not just because they leave because of their leader, but as a leader, you're the reason somebody goes home and has an argument with their spouse because you're bringing up whatever happened to you. I know, because I've had an argument with my spouse, and he's like, "Can you just find another job? This is breaking
Yeah.
you and it's breaking us." Like,
But I would say that some leaders have been elevated to a role of leadership, but were not leaders. They were just
no,
good
they just have the
executors,
title. They've
right?
never been leaders ever. They were probably a
Yeah.
good systems analyst or a good engineer or whatever it is. They were good at what they did, but they didn't know how to lead people. And I was doing
Yeah.
a talk once, and somebody put in the chat, no, most people aren't taught how to be a leader. They just do whatever they do well, and then they get promoted. And going through a training program, like you said, and I think you touched on this earlier, is not the same. It's not the same as being able to have that experience that teaches you, right? You can know the
Mhm.
concepts and all that and whatever, but you're gonna I think people just need to be mindful of when you are entrusted to lead other people. Take that responsibility seriously and think about
Mm-hmm.
how what you do or say to them and how you treat them, how it's going to affect that their mental state. I don't never want to be the reason somebody went home in their car crying. And like my publisher was saying, I was reading the book and she was we were going through the manuscript and she's like, you're saying here sorry to who you didn't get. And I'm like, well, I got to most people, but I'm pretty sure there was one or two people out there who I didn't get to. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry if when I was young and dumb and didn't know, like I was taught to be, this is what they are, authoritative command and control. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's how but quickly, I was like, no, this ain't right. I don't like it. I can't
Yeah.
sleep at night.
Yeah. And you went with that humanity in you that allowed you to say, all right, I want to do something different. I want to show something different because this ain't the way.
Yeah.
Um,
When you know better, you do
thanks.
better.
Yeah, when you know better, you do work. Thank you for sharing those frameworks. I want to switch over to like strategies and success for a second, and because I know you got a ton of stories that you could probably share, um, because you've led some transformation
Yeah.
from
Big.
guided
I
C-suite
was very, very
leaders and
fortunate. I'm not gonna lie. I was very lucky to have all the doors that opened
uh,
up for me. Well, I kicked them down sometimes, but
well, I think luck is when preparation meets
that's
opportunity.
right.
So I think you were nestled in the right
Yeah,
place at the right time,
yeah,
and you were able to guide these C-suite leaders and help
yeah.
teams shift from survival mode into like thriving
That's
cultures.
right.
What's one project or moment that made you pause and say, "This is why I do this work"?
Ooh, that's a good question. um, you know, before I did the work, I was doing the work in terms of I was doing it not knowing that it was
Nah.
psychological safety. But
Hmm.
and I'm gonna speak on a corporate project because the reason why I'm going to speak on a corporate project is because that's where I spend the majority of my time. So
Yeah.
I'm going to speak on this project that I had. It was huge. Like this project,
Hmm.
I had never been entrusted with so much responsibility, and it was opening up a new casino in Jersey, and I lived in Vegas, and it
Ooh.
had 2,500 games that had to be put on the floor, network infrastructure, 2,500 games, code that had never been created but was promised that was contractually. I was like, you committed to that? We don't have that. Okay, you got to go work with the engineers and get this coded, tested, delivered.
Nah.
And I'm describing this because it was so complex. There were so many moving parts, and there was also the regulator. The regulator in Jersey had never approved this before, so the
Nah.
regulator oversight. So I had to deal with over 50 departments, from sales to engineering to every single department you can think of to make the regulatory compliance, all of these departments. And I don't want to say I was green because I wasn't green. I had been, I want to say, a leader, project manager, program manager, for 10 years, but I had never been entrusted with something of this magnitude. And I remember I went in there, and when I needed help, I asked for help. And when I treated the people like human beings, not like robots that had to work 24 hours a day, we're global on different. I had some people that were working globally to deliver. We had a China offshore team, and I treated every single one of those people like human beings. And that was me
Yeah.
providing psychological safety before it was like, in the book or anything like that. And I share this story because I remember I thought I was being hard on them because 60 days before go live, I was like, I don't know how we're gonna make this. Gotta do a punch. They call it punch list. I was like, there's a lot of stuff that's not done. So I
Yeah.
had to announce that we're gonna do every day. Every day we're gonna be on a call. I'm gonna schedule a call with you all every day, and we're gonna check and see what's been done, what's left to do. This was right before Agile was a big thing. Now they're like, oh, it's a Scrum
Hmm.
meeting, and I'm like, what's been done? What did you do yesterday? What's there left to do today? And where are you having roadblocks that you need help? Right? We're not going to solve them
Hmm.
in this meeting, but we're going to call them out in this meeting. And then I'm going to get with people offline and solve it. And they were not happy. They were like, micromanagement every day. And I was like, I'm sorry. This is the only way we're going to get through this. And the reason I
Hmm.
share this story is because at the end of when we went live, there wasn't, you can't move the date. The doors are opening. You got to open the doors, and people are going to come in and gamble. Like you can't.
Hmm.
It's just, sorry, we don't have the technology. You have to have the technology. And at the end
Hmm.
of everything being done, I did a what they would call at the time postmortem, but people don't like it because it sounds like dying, but
Yeah.
retrospective, right? And so what worked well, what didn't, what could we improve? And I was late to join because I had another client in another global region, and I joined quietly. It was like I joined and I didn't announce myself. There were a lot of people on the call and they were going through what went well. And I remember somebody in the product management, I don't remember his name, but I'm sorry, I forgot your names. And I remember he said, well, one of the things that worked well was he described what I provided for the team. And even though I thought I
Mm.
was being um like a little, we got to get all this stuff done.
Like we're like, it,
Yeah,
it was meeting them where they were at,
that's
right?
right. That is a beautiful way of saying it. And they saw the value on the other side.
Hmm.
And that, like, giving me kudos for that while I wasn't in, well, they thought I wasn't in the room. But for me, I was like, yeah, I do build trust. I do empower teams. And although
Hmm.
I said 52 essential practices for a year of building trust and empowering teams, in retrospect, I know that we don't really empower people, but we can be the leader that shines that light and be like that lighthouse that lets them bring their full brilliance to the table. And that's what
Yeah,
I,
I love that. I love that. Because and I think your unique ability to meet people where that really allows for that to happen. And I'm hoping that
I
those
didn't
lessons
always
that
do
they learned,
it.
yeah, I'm hoping those lessons that they learned were able to stick with them even after you've moved on from different projects and so forth. What specific actions or rituals do you bring into your leadership spaces to really anchor that change
Say that
and be able
again.
to what specific actions or rituals do you think you bring into your leadership that really helps to anchor those type of
Yeah.
spaces and get that type of change and momentum going in the different
I mean,
groups?
a lot of it is doing more listening than talking. And for a long
Mm.
time, I talked a lot. I had all the answers. Let me show you all the stuff I know.
I got something to say.
Yes. And I shared this story earlier. I I remember having somebody. I inherited a group of project managers, and I had my little talk about how I'm going to let you do your job. I'm not going to micromanage you. If you need me, let me know. I'm here to help. And I remember somebody came into my office, and they started telling me about a problem they were having with a Wi-Fi project. And immediately I
Mhm.
turned over and wanted to pick up the phone and start calling my peer to be like, "Hey, he needs help." And he was like, "Stop." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "You told us to let us know when we need you. I don't need you to do this. This is me venting and telling you what's going on and what my idea is. I don't need you to solve the problem." And so giving them the space to say, "I'm
Mhm.
just here to vent, or I'm here to brainstorm, or I'm here for you to pick up the phone because I've already tried everything." Right.
Mhm.
Um, Having them come to me with what they need. And then the other thing, and this is huge. I put this in the back of the book as, here's some tips for your one-on-ones or your team meetings or whatever. This
Yeah.
is so, it's so common sense. What do they say about common sense? Common sense is not so common.
Ain't not that common. It's
Right.
not that common.
Um, I remember I had a leader. It was actually during that major casino opening that I told you about, where
Mhm.
I came to meet with her, and she said, "How can I help?" And she was that same leader. I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna use that. How can I help?" And everything shifted for me when I started the conversations, my one-on-ones with, "How can I help?" When they would say whatever, they would listen to them, whatever they were saying. How can I help? As a leader, my job is to help you remove your roadblock, if I can, if it's within my decision making authority, or escalate, or get the right person who can
Mhm.
help me remove that for you so you can keep moving and doing your job, right? Once I provide the North Star, here's what the North Star is, and you know what you're moving towards it. Now, if you're running up against issues to get there, then how can I help? And instead of having one-on-ones that were like, what's the status update? Where you at? When you gonna get this done? That those four words changed everything. And I later did some research because I'm a geek, I'm a nerd like that.
Yeah.
I'm self a self-diagnosed nerd, like, you know, and I'm admitting it. Okay.
It's
And
okay. We all
we
got
all
a
got a
nerd inside of
little
us.
nerdy side. And I did the research, and there's studies that say the same thing. So I was like, you know what? That I think that's a big deal for me. And I've been able to have people follow me from organizations, especially when I was in Vegas. It was huge. As I would move from one organization to another because of my leadership approach, people would call me up and they'd
Mhm.
be like, you got to get me out of here. Please, can you bring me with you?" Like, you know, And I had a CIO who asked me during the interview, do you have the kind of relationships with people where you build the type of teams where, because he was like, I got a lot of open racks I need you to fill. And I was like, I got some people who I could bring that are high players. And
The
yeah,
high contributors. I
that's
love
right.
that. I love that.
Right. Plug and
Now,
play resources, they call them. I don't like that term.
our listeners are emerging founders, creators, change makers, much like some of the people you've worked with,
Mm-hmm.
and many are navigating spaces that weren't designed for them.
Mm.
What advice would you give to Black, Afro, Latinx leaders building something new?
Yeah. Wow. Well, but that's a broad question. So you gotta kind of narrow it down, like in which regard, like
Ooh,
like
I think
apply to
as they step
yours.
in,
Yeah.
as they step into their leadership, because remember that if they're creating something new, sometimes they're being the leader of that innovative product, that
Right.
innovative service, that innovative coaching, that whatever it is. What some advice would you give for them, as they're building this something new as a
Yeah.
leader in their organization, in their business?
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, I
Don't
think
second guess yourself. Whatever it is that you're doing, don't second guess. Don't let somebody, whether it's somebody that reports to you or a customer or a client or a funder, because you got to answer to your funders. Don't let go with your first gut
mhm.
instinct, whatever it is, because usually your first gut is the right thing. Because when you say, when I found myself saying I should have did what I first thought I was gonna do, and when it blows up or doesn't blow up, or just doesn't
Yeah,
go the way that we thought, we're like, I should have done that first thing my gut told me to do, because your gut don't lie. Your inner
right.
guidance system does not lie.
I was saying that to somebody yesterday because I was like, it was another young lady. I was like, listen, women have the strongest intuition. They
Mm,
have really good intuition. The problem is some women don't listen to their intuition.
mm-mm.
Everything in their soul and their spirit could be telling them no, and they still go in there and thinking they can change the outcome, fix it up, da da da. When everything in their intuition said, "No,
Yeah,
sis, you probably shouldn't do this."
that's right.
Right?
That's right. And as people of color, even more so, because you tie that into the question. People always want to tell us what we should be. Like, one of my favorite quotes is from James Baldwin, and
Mhm.
he said, "You got to decide who you're gonna be, right? And don't let." I always mess up. I always like mess them up, but he's like, "You have to decide who you're gonna be. Don't let the world
Mhm.
tell you who you're gonna be, because as people of color, we've been told for so long." Right, this
Mhm.
is who you are because we said so, right? And there's a little one of the, he said, you have to decide who you are, and force the world to deal with you, not with this idea of
Mhm.
you. Because people are going to
Yeah.
come and give you advice or tell you what they're going to do or not do, or what you should do. No, it's, what you can take what people say. I love getting new information. Oh, Taryell, what do you think? What should I do? That doesn't mean I'm going to do what you say. I'm going to add that to my arsenal of what I'm going to process with. And I'm going to go, okay, I got the data. I got some feedback. At the end of the day, my gut is seeing X, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
this doesn't apply to entrepreneurship, but I think it's a good analogy. When I was moving from Philly to Vegas, I was a single mom with two kids. I had no support system. I was moving up. They gave me a job offer. They flew me out, and they dazzled me with the lights, the city of lights, and they put me up at the MGM or Treasure Island, whatever. Treasure Island's closed now, but they brought me out there, and I was like, is this a joke? Like, they gonna take this Puerto Rican Afro-Latina from North Philly and bring her out here? And I remember I made a very meticulous list of pros and cons because I was trying to be objective. And I had like 35 criteria, and it wasn't just about pay. It was so many
Mhm.
other things that went into that Excel spreadsheet. And
Yeah.
it was between SunGuard and MGM. And I
Uh-huh.
remember the bottom line number at the bottom of the spreadsheet was SunGuard in Philly, to stay in Philly. My gut
Mm.
said, go to Vegas. And it was in
Mm.
Vegas where I transformed from manager to director to executive director to VP to finding the love of my life to having my midlife crisis baby to like meeting my publisher who's been like invaluable to me, who I met
Yeah.
Kimberly, and then I met you. So you see how it all works? Like,
Yeah.
Yes,
Intuition is undefeated when you listen to it.
that's right.
So yeah, I love that. Great testimony. Something that I do admire about you, like throughout the your testimonies and stories, you're always intentional about amplifying every voice, and I really appreciate that. Why is it so important in today's climate to do that, you think?
Ooh. Because they're shutting us down, because they're trying to minimize us, because they're making us
Yeah.
the reason why things don't work, when the reason why things don't work is in the mirror. and
Hmm.
and I think it's important that we don't forget that we have a voice, and we need to use
Yeah.
that voice, and that's how change happens. And when I think about the all the progress that's been made in history, it's because somebody used their voice, right? King used his voice, right? Like,
Hmm.
he is one of the so many, like, they all use their voice, and we wouldn't be right here right now if they didn't use their voice. So we have to use our voice and not let other people shut us up. Silence is not
Hmm.
acceptance. We may be quiet for a minute, but that doesn't mean we accept what's happening. We might just be strategizing on how to use our voice
Yeah.
differently to reach a broader audience. And I think that with AI now, there's so many ways to leverage, to like look at the technology, look at the I look at, like, I wrote a song. What was it? A song was a poem, but I used Suno AI to write a
Hmm.
song that that about believing in yourself. And I threw in
Hmm.
some stuff in there that subliminally, because we're all operating on different frequencies, to use AI to be able to put out a song out there. And it's on YouTube. It doesn't, it's just, it took my lyrics, and it created a musical arrangement. And
Yeah.
people have said to me, "Oh, that song is deep," or some people like, "Oh, I read the lyrics and that's what I'm feeling." And so I think that there's no other greater time in history where we can leverage what's going on to make our voices heard, whether it's social media, whether it's, I still haven't figured out the TikTok thing. I gotta get figure that. People are like, "What are you gonna do with TikTok?" I'm like, I got a
You
couple
gotta get
polls
active.
too.
You gotta get active with
It's
TikTok,
it's
sis.
a full-time job. I gotta hire a
It is.
full-time person to keep up with so many platforms.
But don't worry, you in the right circle. You know people, and those people know people, and now you in my circle, so we gonna make a doody do.
It's a lot of work. Yes, I will take all the referrals I can get. A lot of what you see out there, I've created on my own at night, countless not being able to sleep and logging off of one work laptop after being on that laptop for 8, 9 hours, and then getting on another laptop. And then my husband, who works, he's like, he goes to work, comes back to me. He's like, "You're on the laptop when I leave work, and you're on the laptop when I come back." He's like, "That can't be good for your nervous system." I'm like, "I know, I gotta do better." But there's just so much. I have so much inside that I want to get out there and give to the world and be like, "I have this idea. I have
Right,
that idea. We can make this better. We can make that better." So yeah,
right.
I gotta
And
temper
you doing
myself.
it. And you doing it. You doing it. And ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Always use your voice. Use your voice. And before you even use that instrument and call your voice, take some of the heat of the other lessons in there. Get to know what your intuition and what does your voice want to say, so you
Mm,
can lean into that voice once that time comes. Um, Amervis, this has been amazing. You've given us so much wisdom today. From protecting your peace to leading with courage.
yeah, protect that
Before we
peace.
close out, where can folks find you, support your work,
Yes,
dive into your Leading with Psychological Safety book?
yes, yes.
Give us all the breakdown. Anything you got coming up too? Do you got anything coming up soon? Like,
I do.
okay, all right. Break it down for us. Break it down.
Where can you find me? The easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. Um,
Okay.
you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube at Amervis Author. I try to keep it simple. I'm on TikTok, but not quite yet. I'm there, but I just gotta figure out how to do
We're
that.
working on it. We're
Working
working
on
on
it.
it.
I know the Gen Zs are my love. I love my Gen Zs. They're like, "Girl, you gotta get on TikTok." I'm like, "I know, you gotta help me." Ascend-transcend.com is my website. If anybody wants what I bring to the table, because I bring the fire to the table, you can email me at
Mm.
askamervis@gmail.com. I just was like, keep it simple. Not, it's not, I got a lot of stuff going on. I got another book that I'm working on that the detox I didn't expect, and it's about detoxing from toxic environments,
Mm.
because you don't realize the physical the physical detox you're going to go through when you do finally step out of a toxic environment, and you're like, "Why am I
Mm.
getting these
Okay.
symptoms like I'm detoxing from carbs or sugar?" Like, um
Yeah.
So I got that
Okay.
coming up. Yes, and I got I guess a few things. I'm being asked to co-author a couple books. One are
Okay, I see
yeah,
you. Let's go.
yeah, and
Co-authoring now.
I was let me see. I have two books. I have the two books From the Streets of Corporate America, Leading with Psychological Safety. I've been a co-author on the Latinas 100 anthology since it came out back in 2020, I want to say. So I think I'm on three of those volumes. I've been asked to co-author, be on two more books that are, I want to say, they say this year, but I know the work that goes into a book. It's probably going to be more like
Right.
next year. And I think I think what I really, and I don't have like there's no speaking CTA on my website right now. There, I took it
Right.
down. I needed to honor my own boundaries and nurture my, like I got to practice what I preach and look at, I can't commit to so many things at the same time. So that's why I
Mhm.
kept it simple. It was like, just emailing me and we'll figure out. I took down my calendar. I was like, we'll figure out the best way to connect. It's not that, to me, I feel like I would rather show up fully present, giving a quality a quality session than trying to spread
Mhm.
myself too thin, and then you don't get the best of me and I burn out, and that's good for no one. So
Yeah.
yes,
Facts.
yes,
Facts. Man, thank you.
yes. So
Thank
thank
you
you for
for
having
just
me. I'm gonna
being here.
I'm gonna
Yeah. Go
just
ahead.
share this real quick. This is a little crystal heart that my daughter,
Ooh.
my middle daughter, gave me for my birthday,
Yeah.
and I hang on to it in front of my laptop so that I can, instead of giving you an emoji, the audience, I'm gonna give you the audience, whoever's listening, watching.
Oh.
This is my way of giving you guys some love. So
Yeah. She's giving us her heart. She's giving us her heart.
yes, yes,
We
yes.
appreciate that.
We're
We
all
appreciate the
connected.
love.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the love, and we give you the love right back. Thank you for just being here and for reminding us that we're not here to normalize harm. We're
Mm-mm.
here to transcend
Ascend and
and
transcend.
heal, ascend and transcend, heal, use our voices. So to all our listeners, if this episode sparks something in you, go ahead and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay tuned for next week's episode, where we continue to amplify the voices moving our culture forward. Until then, stay rising.
Gratitude, gratitude.
Gratitude. Oh, I love the heart. All right. Let me see. Did it stop? Oops.